Another year gone, and now I have to talk about what's coming next. Well, here goes my top 10 list of at least 26 movies that I've done research on to see that they are coming soon to theaters. Time to look forward to the new year and what other fresh hell it will give us. I look forward to watching all these movies after they go straight to Netflix complete with AI scripts and messages from Skydance to tell us to never question anything. Remember, all of Hollywood still thinks you're stupid.
Look at all this deliciousness! They want this! All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Animal Farm, a cautionary tale.
Anyway, here's some movies that aren't just corporate slop. Probably. Mostly. Let's just get into this. No need for anything else. Number 26 is... Sure, let's go Avengers Doomsday. Yes, Marvel isn't the powerhouse that they once were. They were never high art, but before Endgame they were still entertaining enough to at least be worth a trip to the theater. Now it's all just the same 3-star stuff with the occasional one that's better or worse. But they've been on an upswing with the 1-2 punch of Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four First Steps. While neither of them were on the level of their best work, they were still way more fun than most of what we've had from them in years. And now they're making their big event movie, with the return of Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. He couldn't walk away from the Marvel money, and Marvel couldn't walk away from Robert Downey Jr., particularly after Jonathan Majors fucked everything up by beating his girlfriend. And the movie gets on the list solely because it's their big Avengers movie, the one that everything's allegedly been building up to. And I kinda just wanna know what that is. Spoiler alert, Spider-Man Brand New Day isn't on this list. I will probably see it at some point, but honestly, who cares? Show me where it's all going. Number 25 is Dead Man's Wire. Gets onto the list because after seeing the trailer, I added it to my Letterboxd watch list. Another spoiler alert, a lot of the biggest movies this year did not make the list. Not because I'm not interested, most of the time, but they didn't hook me enough. But this one kinda did, so there's gotta be a few original ideas here. Some of them even reaching the top 10 that honestly deserve to be promoted more than any crappy billion-dollar sequel. It's the new film from director Gus Van Sant, who made classics like Drugstore Cowboy, Good Will Hunting, and the Palme d'Or winning Elephant. This one is a thriller, telling the true story of somebody in the 1970s played by Bill Skarsgård who was facing trouble with the bank. Until one day, he just snaps, kidnaps a mortgage broker, and says he'll kill him if he doesn't get the money he needs and an apology from said bank. And that can make for an interesting thriller that could also be very timely. And with a great director and what looks to be a fun vibe, this could be something really good. At number 24, we got Shaun the Sheep, The Beast of Mossy Bottom. Okay, I've never pretended to be a super fan of Shaun the Sheep. I definitely like it, but at the same time, I still have never even seen Farmageddon. But still, as a casual fan, they've never let me down. I don't think I've ever seen anything from them that hasn't charmed me. And it's particularly interesting in how pure it feels. No dialogue, just cartoon shenanigans throughout. Even when in a feature film with actual story and even some emotional moments. And I'm one of those losers who wasted his time in film school, so of course I like that unconventional way of storytelling. This one appears to be a Halloween movie, and I'll be excited to see that on Halloween. Actually, it will most likely not be on that exact date, but whatever. Which brings us to number 23. Ready or Not, Here I Come. No matter how this one turns out, at least they got the right sequel title. Even Now You See Me couldn't think of a title like that until the third one. Anyway, it's a sequel to the horror comedy Ready or Not, which was a lot of fun, but they wrapped up everything. Did Samara Weaving really get into the same situation again, where she has to play a deadly game of hide and seek? You know, the kind of thing that happens often? No, they actually thought of a sequel idea that makes sense. Because she survived the last game, the secret society that controls the curse, or something like that, has taken her, and forces her to go double or nothing with another game among a group of even bigger elites. This time she's with her sister, who was kidnapped with her so that they could use her as leverage. From the directors of the original, who turned down the offer to continue their Scream franchise for this. The original was a lot of fun. If they can make this almost as entertaining as that one, this should be a treat. At number 22, it's Evil Dead Burn. I've said before that I prefer the campier Evil Dead movies, but the newer, grittier ones have also been consistently good, actually disturbing, gory movies, which is kind of the reason it ranks above Ready or Not too. While that one is closer to that Evil Dead style I love, I said closer, not close, that one also had only one movie beforehand, and the Evil Dead has a lot more good ones, so there's at least proof that they can do it again. This new Evil Dead movie could end up being crap, but at least it proved itself earlier, so I can at least expect better. I looked up the director, and he is Sebastian Vanasek, a guy who made a bunch of shorts and some feature-length movie I've never heard of. If he can maintain the feel of the other more recent installments, it should be a disturbing movie, and sure, it's another Evil Dead movie, of course it's going to be on this list. Number 21, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. The sequel to 28 Years Later. That's right, 28 years later. This isn't 28 Days Later Part 4, this is 28 Days Later Part 3 Part 2. Apparently this was filmed at around the same time as the original 28 Years Later, and there's apparently already talks of a Part 3. I'm not as excited as I was for the original 28 Years Later. Not that I didn't like that one, except for maybe the dramatic tone shift at the end, but there just wasn't really as much there that made me get as excited for another one. But the Bone Temple's been getting some good early reactions, so yeah, I'll put it here. It has a different director and appears to be sticking to the serious tone of most of the previous movie as opposed to the suddenly ridiculous tone of the final scene. This has potential to be a good zombie movie, but if the title 28 Years Later becomes to this franchise what the Jurassic World title was to the Jurassic Park movies, that would kinda suck. The difference in tone and quality isn't as great as those of Jurassic World and Jurassic Park, but still. I actually decided to put this next one here while writing the entry for Evil Dead Burn. Number 20 is Terrifier 4. I have mixed feelings on these movies, maybe a little more mixed than I've let on in the past. It's a great villain and a lot of extreme gore, but not as much beyond that. But I put Evil Dead Burn here, and honestly I can't defend the recent Evil Dead movies being better gore fests than them, or the new 28 Years Later being more entertaining. Anyway, this fourth installment is supposed to be the finale, and may possibly take its characters into literal hell. Shit, why didn't I put this movie here before? At number 19 is Violent Night 2, the sequel to the movie that turned Santa Claus into John McClane. And the first one was pretty fun. It actually had enough good action and comedy to become more than just a one-joke premise. According to the IMDB page, it is keeping the same director, so that's a good sign. The plot description says it's about Santa being trapped in a mall where he needs to overcome a crime lord and his henchmen. Sounds like it could be fun. Actually, that setting could probably lend to some illusions about how commercialized the holidays are, similar to how people interpret Dawn of the Dead. But even if they don't, this should be a very fun and, as the title suggests, very violent time. For number 18, I'm going with Project Hail Mary. Based on the novel from the author of The Martian, it stars Ryan Gosling as a professor sent to space to stop the sun from dying. From the directing team of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who made, among other things, the Lego Movie and the Spider-Verse movies. Whether it will reach the same heights as those movies did remains to be seen, but the trailer looks promising. A nice, visually stunning sci-fi movie from two greats. Should be interesting. Number 17 is Werewolf, from Robert Eggers, the guy behind The Witch, The Lighthouse, and the Nosferatu remake. Another horror film about the olden times, but this time it's about a werewolf. That should work pretty well in his style. It will star Aaron Taylor Johnson, Willem Dafoe, and Lily Rose Depp. Number 16 is Narnia. Yep, we're getting another adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia. This time we're going in order, adapting the first book, The Magician's Nephew, before going on to the more famous The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This one's from Netflix. That's not a good sign, but it's also from writer and director Greta Gerwig. That's better. I have not read all the Narnia books, but I remember reading this one as a kid. And Gerwig has proved herself to be a capable director, and I'm excited to see her take on this kind of large-scale fantasy adventure. At number 15, Here Comes the Bride. It's a different take on The Bride of Frankenstein from director Maggie Gyllenhaal. Jessie Buckley plays the bride alongside Christian Bale's Frankenstein monster in what looks like a Bonnie and Clyde situation. Also stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Penelope Cruz, and Peter Sarsgaard. The trailer promises a fun, dark romance, and let's hope the movie lives up to that. Number 14 is Coyote vs. Acme. Well, here we are. Never thought this would happen, but it's happening. The movie that was originally written off by Warner Brothers, but this time they fucked their creators one time too many, and this sparked enough backlash that they kept it around for some time. They tried to sell it, but honestly, it seems like they were just kind of pieces of shit about it. But it finally got sold to Ketchup Entertainment, and it is actually being released now. The movie is a live-action animated hybrid based on the satirical article where Wile E. Coyote tries to sue Acme for their faulty products, which is an interesting take on how to make another Looney Tunes movie. This could end up being the courtroom drama version of Space Jam. I mean, it probably won't be that deep considering it's aimed at kids, and honestly, I don't want it to be that deep. I just want another Looney Tunes movie. This is the film that the bigwigs of the Warner Brothers, Netflix, possibly Paramount monopoly don't want you to see. Obviously, the best way to stick it to the man is to watch this IP children's movie. Although seriously, wouldn't it suck for them if this makes $1 billion for Ketchup? No, don't see it. Think of the morally bankrupt business bros.
Star Wars, 1 billion years in the making, and it's coming to your galaxy this summer.
And number 13 is The Mandalorian and Grogu. The Mandalorian is coming to the big screen, where it will presumably be cooler to watch. This show is one of the best things to come out of Disney buying Star Wars, a move which has famously been a mixed bag. But this series has given us some iconic characters and has shown a very interesting corner of the Star Wars universe, and it would be a lot of fun to see that in the theater. At number 12, it's Alpha, the new film by French director Julia Ducournau, who did Raw and the first horror film to win the Palme d'Or, Titan. It looks like it's going to be another twisted coming-of-age tale, and she has proven herself to be good at these kinds of transgressive and, in Titan's case, surreal movies. I'm excited to see what she can do next. Number 11, The Odyssey, a movie so highly anticipated they started pre-selling tickets a full year in advance, as if it was a Taylor Swift concert and not just a movie you can buy a ticket for at the box office on a whim. And it's an adaptation of The Odyssey. Is Roman mythology the new Marvel? Oh yeah, that makes sense. Christopher Nolan, the guy who made a 3-hour slow burn about the maker of the atomic bomb into one of the biggest hits of the summer in a time when people only go out to see CGI superhero fights. And now he's writing and directing this. They also gave writing credit to Homer on IMDb. I'm sure he'd be happy to know that he has that on his IMDb page. It stars, well, that's a lot more famous people than I was expecting. Anyway, Nolan is a good director, and I want to see what he can do with this classic source material. And now we finally reached the top 10 of our top 10 countdown. At number 10, it's Wild Horse 9. This one I haven't seen much about in my research for this video. The only place I've seen it was a brief mention in some Reddit post that didn't have many upvotes but somehow managed to appear in my Google search. Which is a little surprising considering it's the newest film from director Martin McDonagh, the guy behind In Bruges, Seven Psychopaths, and Banshees of Inisherin. I thought he'd have a big enough fan base that he'd at least appear a little more, but the point is he definitely has my attention. IMDb says it's about two CIA agents in 1970s Chile. It stars Steve Buscemi, John Malkovich, and Sam Rockwell. Number 9 is Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, the return of director Gore Verbinski, who made Pirates of the Caribbean, The Ring remake, and Rango, starring Sam Rockwell as a man who claims to be from the future and must recruit a bunch of people in a random restaurant to save the world from an evil AI. And the trailer promises something weird and fun, the kind of thing that can only come from a smaller film company. I think they might have also picked it up from a film festival. If it lives up to this trailer, then it has the makings of a future cult hit. Number 8 is I Love Boosters, the new film from Boots Riley, the guy behind Sorry to Bother You and the show I'm a Virgo. I haven't seen the latter since I don't have Amazon Prime, but I really liked Sorry to Bother You. Basically what would happen if you crossbred South Park with a David Lynch movie. And if this is like that too, then I'm excited. Starring Keke Palmer, Lakeith Stanfield, and Demi Moore. It's allegedly about a group of shoplifters. Should be interesting. At number 7, we got Send Help, the new film from Sam Raimi. You may remember I said I prefer his tone for the Evil Dead movies. Wow, really, Jay? You prefer the original Evil Dead trilogy to the newer ones? What other hot takes do you have? Anyway, this one doesn't appear to have that tone, but Raimi's still horror royalty, and this should at least show some of his style, even if it's not on that level of absurdity. This one stars Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien as an office worker and her boss respectively. Anyway, O'Brien's character is a total sleazeball who's horrible to her. Until his private plane crashes with both of them on board and they're stranded on an island together. And she's the one who gets the upper hand. This should go well for him.
You are stuck with an asshole boss. Just like I was. Although I'm betting I am a much nicer boss than you ever would have been. Except for maybe this part.
Ah yes, the small horror subgenre of bad people getting what they deserve at the hands of worse people. Or in this case, someone who gets pushed just one time too many and turns worse. That's always satisfying. And once again, with the horror legend behind the camera, this should live up to that. Hopefully he puts in that sense of humor. Once again, probably not Evil Dead, but it should be closer to Drag Me to Hell. An intriguing concept, a good director, and a good cast, what's not to like? Number 6 is Clayface. James Gunn said that in his DC universe, his movies would feel different from each other in order to prevent the fatigue that comes when all Marvel movies feel the same. And in this one, he's pushing that. A film about the Batman villain, except this one is a straight-up body horror movie. An origin story where an actor, played by a guy named Tom Rhys-Harris, turns himself into a shape-shifting clay monster and, I guess, eventually becomes a villain. From James Watkins, who made Eden Lake, The Woman in Black, and the Speak No Evil remake, and co-written by Mike Flanagan. Like Joker, this is DC experimenting with other genres in interesting ways, and I'm kinda sold on the idea of a superhero movie that's really just the story of a man turning into a monster. At number 5 is Supergirl. Yes, I have both DC movies in my top 10 while just one Marvel movie just barely made it to the end of my list. Sorry I'm over, but I'm dishing you for the younger, hotter superhero universe. I was a big fan of Superman, and this one continues in that universe following Supergirl, who shows up near the end of that movie played by Millie Alcock. And true to Gunn's promise, this is not exactly like Superman. It is closer, but since Supergirl is the messier, more imperfect version of him, this is apparently going to reflect that.
You managed to get most of it on the paper this time. Good job, buddy.
The trailer portrays it as something ironically closer to Guardians of the Galaxy. James Gunn is not directing this time. It will instead be Craig Gillespie, who did I, Tonya and Cruella, but it should maintain somewhat of the same feel of Superman, minus the uplifting, hopeful vibe. This is just going to be a fun action movie in a new universe that shows promise. The DCU is just getting started, and I think it has a lot of time before it has to worry about growing stale. And now we get to number 4, Digger. Fun fact, the day that I wrote this part of the video was also the day that they announced this movie's title. Before, I knew it only as Untitled Alejandro G. Iñárritu film, and his name was what got me interested. Alejandro G. Iñárritu is the director of, among others, Birdman, The Revenant, Beautiful, and Babel. I haven't seen Beautiful, but I was a big fan of those other 3. This one stars Tom Cruise and is allegedly a comedy of disastrous proportions. Knowing the director, this will probably be deeper than just a straight-up comedy, and I'm excited to hear more about it. At number 3 is Disclosure Day, another movie that revealed the title after I decided to add it. Before then, it was known as Untitled Steven Spielberg UFO Movie. Do I really need to explain why it's here now? They put a cryptic billboard for it up in Times Square and said that they'd play the first trailer, including a title, before Avatar Fire and Ash, but put it online before then. Anyway, it's a Steven Spielberg movie about UFOs. From the trailer, we can see it's about the day where some top secret stuff about aliens will be revealed to the public or something. And you can't really go wrong with a popcorn sci-fi drama directed by the one and only Steven Spielberg. Number 2 is Resident Evil. This movie gets here for one reason. Zach Cregger, director of Barbarian and Weapons. He has quickly become one of the more interesting voices in horror working today. And now he's making an adaptation that is supposed to be closer to the original games than the Paul W.S. Anderson movies were. Hopefully this will have the level of unpredictability of his previous work. Maybe even the unconventional narratives that made them that way. I haven't played any of the Resident Evil games yet, but it's a new Zach Cregger zombie movie. That's enough to get to number 2. But number 1, drumroll please, is Godzilla Minus Zero. Yes, Godzilla's back. So back the title doesn't even need to make mathematical sense. Hey, a foreign film is number 1. I'm so cultured. Anyway, as the title may suggest, it is a sequel to Godzilla Minus One, which honestly might be the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen. The rare monster movie where the characters are as interesting as the monster, and I'm hoping this one will continue in that tradition. This is indeed from the same director, so that's a great sign. It's supposed to premiere in late 2026, at least in Japan. Hopefully we get it here in America at around the same time. And that was my most anticipated list. You know, at first there was another movie at the very bottom of the list below Avengers Doomsday, the Megan spin-off Soulmate. But after I wrote the script for this section on it, the movie was removed from the release schedule and is being shopped around to different studios. And you would have been able to see what I wrote about that, or at least the rough draft, if only you had joined my Patreon, which is where I posted it after I heard the news. The link to my page is in the description. Please support the channel if you can.